Stop trying to cater yourselves to people who hate everything you stand for.
Now we're getting back to like that all-American beauty.
There is something alien and kind of off-putting about somebody that has like their whole face done.
Where it's like, I'm not ugly, I'm just poor. Because the beauty standard is just so far gone.
It's a little fake, little guy.
This is the type of shit that would throw a Victorian era child into a coma.
Like, just own your beauty and your uniqueness.
Create a better future for yourself that doesn't emulate or look like your past.
Drink more water, get some exercise, find a real purpose in your life, eat a healthier diet, and go to church, and it will improve your life dramatically.
Lioness does not concern herself with...
You'll figure it out, I promise.
Like
I've been
taking
through that.
advice from Democrats when they've like literally ruined the government.
Marriage and motherhood is literally the best decision you can ever make.
It's everything you could possibly need is right here.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Sincerely American. Thank you guys so much for all the love and support we got last week. We just genuinely are so inspired by everyone. We love you guys so much, and we're just so thankful for this amazing community that we're building, and I just can't wait to see what we will have in store in the future.
I know, with what we pulled off and the time span that we did and just making this all come to fruition so quickly and just bouncing on the opportunity when we got it, it's just so Cam and Jayme core. Yeah. Not even thinking it through, just knowing that like we love each other so much, our friendship has grown so much over the years, and we just want to share that with you guys. So thank you for supporting us personally, also professionally, and I'm ready to get started.
Reminder, we'll be here every Wednesday morning, whether you like it or not. Okay, let's get into the episode. We have a lot of fun things to cover today, per usual. I'm excited about this episode.
Yeah, we have a lot more note cards this time, so I guess we have a lot more to yap about.
Yeah, we have a lot to say, as always. I saw this all over X throughout the last, 5 days maybe? And this is Emma Watson, who, I don't know if this is just me. I have not seen this woman in a movie for years now. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't know why she continues to be famous, to be honest. Everything that comes out of her mouth has just been annoying. But so she's 35 years old, and she's saying the pressure to get married is violence against young people. Let's roll the clip.
It's such a violence and it's such a cruelty on people, and especially young people, I think, and especially women, to make them feel like they have no worth or like they haven't succeeded yet in life because they haven't forced to its culmination something that I just don't think can or should ever be forced.
Reverse stigma nowadays with getting married young. It's actually discouraged nowadays. When, back when our grandparents were getting married, or our grandfathers were going to war, or they were marrying their high school sweetheart at 17, 18 years old. And it was in a culture that was actually celebrating that. When you were creating a legacy with your spouse and creating children and a family, that was something to actually be encouraged in society, and it was actually widely accepted and appreciated because you're in a covenant with somebody and you're passing on your family name and your legacy, and it creates more meaning and purpose in your life. And now we live in a day and age where now it's frowned upon. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I think you touched on something important. The stigma is actually in reverse. These feminists pretend like there's some pressure to get married now. I will say, so I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and then I've only lived in D.C. or New York. I lived in New York for 1 year. So I've only lived in very liberal areas my entire life. And so I got married at 23, and I had Vivian at 24, and my husband is basically the same age as me. And I always joke to people, I'm like a teen mom in DC. I go to classes, and all the moms are a lot older because I think, I looked this up one time, but the average age that women are having kids in the DC area is 33 years old. And so that's obviously 10 years older, almost 10 years older than when I had Vivian. And I just go to these classes, and everyone's so much older. A lot of my friends also are in a different season of life that are my age that live in the DC area. I don't have actually any girlfriends that are my age that have kids. And so I think the stigma is actually in the reverse. People all the time think I'm Vivian's nanny around here because, I take it as a compliment. I am 27, so it's not like I'm 27. I'm not a teenager, and I'm not in my early 20s anymore. But The stigma is totally in reverse, and so many people nowadays are being encouraged, women in general, to not have children anymore. And that is just such a crazy thing because, like, our ancestors, think about the decision not to have children. You have ancestors that, you know, fought tooth and nail to continue your family legacy, and then some millennial in this day and age is like, you know what, I like living in my Brooklyn apartment and having my cat and drinking rosé, and I don't want kids, so I'm just gonna end my whole bloodline.
It is such a selfish way of living if you truly think about it. And I think a lot of men, even your husband, would attest to this. When you have children who are relying on you and you have a wife and you're their sole provider as a man, it gives your life more purpose and more meaning. Same with women, same with moms. I can't really speak on this with too much authority. I'm not a mom yet, but Jayme is. And I would say that ever since I've seen you become a mom, you have drastically changed in a lot of ways for the better. And that's why we have become so close, and you know, we have the dynamic that we have. We've seen each other in every single season of life, and it has given your life more purpose and more meaning. Would you say so?
Oh, 100%. Marriage and motherhood is literally the best decision you can ever make. And I also hate this thing that your life stops when you, like people will be like, I need to achieve this before I get married or before I have kids. Why? You can achieve anything when you're married and you have kids. Like, I don't even, that precedent that we've set in society is also really weird to me. I think we have also a huge trend of delayed adolescence and this Peter Pan syndrome, where you're having people at 35 years old act like they're still 20 years old and going out to clubs, partying, just want to drink the entire weekend and just want to live for themselves, or the 35-year-olds that haven't found themselves yet. Like, you're 35 years old, you found yourself, this is who you are. And I think, there's never going to be the perfect time in life, and I know we're going to get into this later, to have kids, but just jump into it and have fun, and it's not violence. And the last thing I'll bring up on this topic is I love how they talk about violence nonstop, that, speech is violence. If you say this, it's violence. If you say a man can't become a woman, that's violence. I guess, according to Emma Watson, to pressure women to get married is violence. Yet, when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, these people had nothing to say. So for liberals, everything is violence except actual violence. And as you know, we've been dealing with a lot of left-wing terrorism across this country. That is the violence, Emma Watson, that you should be condemning, not some stupid thing about getting married.
I think these people are just so disconnected from reality.
Speaking of disconnected from reality, I was so excited to talk about this topic. This is very controversial, and I Camryn and I know her very well, so I know we have like slightly different takes on this, but I really wanted to talk about because it's so big amongst like women our age. Like, I'll be out to brunch and I see a group of like women in their mid to late 20s talking about this at the table, about how they're going to therapy this, therapy that. And so I saw this TikTok the other day and I sent it to Camryn because I thought it was hilarious because it just perfectly encapsulates what I've always thought about therapy. Let's roll the clip.
Do you ever just think about the fact that the worst person you know is probably in therapy being told it's okay to be selfish, or like, being encouraged to love themselves even more than they already do?
And then I also, Camryn, you sent me this in return, and I thought this was a great one as well. Let's roll this clip too.
Hot take, why don't we bring back inconveniencing yourself to show up for people? You don't want to go out, but it's your friend's birthday? Show up. Like, we have gotten way too comfortable with these boundaries that we're setting.
People nowadays treat therapy like going to church, and they make their therapist their god, essentially.
When you go into a therapy session, so it's different than, like, example, when I have something in my life, I always call Camryn. If I'm like dealing with some type of drama, some type of difficult thing, maybe a difficult situation, job things in the past, like I've always called you, or I call my parents, or I talk to my husband, of course, and they're in my life. So they understand all different sides of that because they're very integrated in my life. When you go to a therapist, this person most likely is extremely removed from your life. So you are going in and a lot of times telling your truth, not the whole truth. The other person, say you're going in to talk about a situation, pretend Camryn and I are in a fight, and I go in to speak to a therapist, I'm only telling my side, and that therapist only gets to hear my side. They don't get to hear your side, for example. And so I think a lot of these therapists are really reinforcing a lot of toxic mindsets for these people and reinforcing their toxic viewpoints. And that's why you're seeing this culture too, where it's like, cut off your mom, cut off your dad, create these boundaries.
Protect your peace.
Yeah, protect your peace. And this is terrible advice. And this, I actually think this is my hottest take. I think therapy has been one of the worst things that's ever happened in this country, that people just en masse are going to therapy. And I'll make some exceptions. If you're dealing with an extreme grief loss, like of a child, that is a time to go to therapy to be able to have the steps to move forward in your life. Like extreme trauma like that. If you're dealing with obviously substance abuse issues, if you're a war veteran who's dealing with PTSD, or you have a real mental health crisis, not that you're just anxious and you're feeling a little down, I'm talking about you're dealing with schizophrenia or an extreme eating disorder, that would kind of be my caveat to this. Otherwise, I think there's so many better ways in your life to deal with issues. And I think if you're anxious or you are depressed in your life, instead of just dwelling on it and talking about it all day, it's just such a narcissistic way to live. I mean this, it might sound simple. Drink more water, get some exercise, find a real purpose in your life, eat a healthier diet, and go to church, and it will improve your life dramatically.
I completely agree. And I think with this culture too, though, if you have the heart posture and you're going into therapy and you're like, I really do want to better myself, and you're more solutions oriented, going in there with the purpose of, I need to fix X, Y, and Z in my life, because I've seen this be a pattern behavior essentially that has been negative in my life and has been on a repetitive cycle. I understand that. But if you're going in there just to harp on the same childhood trauma and placing your identity in your hardships, you're not going to get anywhere in life. I think, I've been through things in my childhood where I really didn't grow up in the perfect white picket fence home with two parents in my household. But I think that a lot of people choose to be victims in today's day and age instead of choosing to be victorious and not letting those things define you. Instead, you're going to use that to drive you to create a better future for yourself that doesn't emulate or look like your past. And I think today's day and age, people aren't going into therapy for the correct reasons. I think people are going into therapy to be vindicated in their own emotion, that they feel justified in reacting a certain way, or they feel justified in this situation. Like you said, you're only getting one person's reality. Perception is reality. They only have it to go off of their client who is paying them. And so I just don't think that people are utilizing therapy nowadays to the fullest extent. If you're lacking mentors in your life, I understand that. Or maybe people in your life you don't want to end up like someday, and you're seeking outside counsel, and you go in with that mindset, I actually empathize with you. And I agree that's actually a good thing to go do. But like Jayme noted too, you can find a community within your church. You can find people who have seen areas of your life behind closed doors that others may have not. And so I do think that there are better ways to go about this.
I think another issue with the therapy industry, it's a bunch of left-wing nut jobs that get into this. I mean, it's the type of people that are reaffirming that you can become a man, can become a woman. It's this type of group of people. I would never trust these people with advice.
If you're somebody who does go to church and you're actively pursuing the Lord and growing in your faith journey, I think it's really important to actually have a therapist who shares a similar worldview to you.
I think a Christian counselor is, if you were to go to therapy, is the only way that you can go about it. But these secular therapists are crazy. And also, okay, more people are in therapy than ever, yet we have higher anxiety rates, higher depression rates. So it doesn't seem like therapy's solving any issues for people. And I think because therapists are also financially incentivized to keep you in therapy. And so I look at a lot of people my age, obviously we're dealing with a affordability crisis in this last 5 years, and they're paying hundreds of dollars a week to go talk about their feelings all day, instead of actually doing stuff in their life to improve it. And it seems just like one big Ponzi scheme that's leaving everybody so miserable and depressed.
I would just say the best form of therapy is opening up your Bible and really connecting with the Lord, because all of Scripture is rooted in just solid truths that stand the test of time. And you don't want to be relying on the secular therapist who doesn't have the same worldview as you.
Completely agree. And the last point I'll make too is I feel like this is such a hot take. When a man says he's in therapy to me, I know like these liberal women love that. I am the exact opposite. That is the biggest red flag ever.
The gender lines have been blurred and like men just embracing these feelings. Like women are actually on a completely different hormonal cycle where like men only have one cycle. So you should be stoic and you should be rock solid in your emotions. Women have completely different cycles where their hormones are fluctuating up and down, and it causes a little bit more like just
craziness?
No, I don't want to say craziness, but like just differences.
That.
Yeah, just differences in emotions and feelings depending on your cycle. And so it's just, I completely agree with you. It's just, it gives me the ick almost.
Yeah, if any guy is watching, whether these feminists admit it or not, what a woman wants out of a man, just like men have things that they want out of women, what women want out of men is a rock solid man who's stoic and can handle anything that life throws their way.
And that's why you see liberal women pursuing conservative men, and we will leave it there.
Yeah, we'll leave it there. Okay, heading into this next topic, totally changing course and getting to some less serious things, we wanted to talk a lot about beauty standards and just how they've really changed. There's a lot of constant talking about how our beauty standards are evolving and growing. Let's roll the clip.
I feel like this is a really hot take and I might get a lot of hate for this, but I just want to start off by saying this is just my opinion. If you disagree, that's fine. People love to talk about the body standards of the 2000s and the 90s, talking about how they were impossible and so strict, etc., etc., etc. It could very possibly be because my body is naturally quite skinny, but I think the body standards of the 2000s and the 90s were far more attainable than the body standards right now. Because back then, the only requirement was to just be skinny.
Yeah, I honestly just think today's beauty standards go against basic anatomy where your body cannot just be like skinny and so most women would say this. Your body can't just be skinny in certain areas and then maybe like thicker in others. It just doesn't make sense. Like when you would go back to the 90s, even though people were saying this was just not an unserious, but it was a very toxic culture of like drug use and by unhealthy means of maybe just not eating, like feeling a lot of eating disorders. It was actually more attainable because you could go on a diet, you could go to the gym. And now today, it's only achievable through surgeries.
Yeah.
Didn't you say that?
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, the main crux of this is, yes, there was obviously a lot of the body standards, especially in the early 2000s. It's funny, we went through like different ebbs and flows of body standards because, you know, you look at like Cindy Crawford in like the early 90s, late 80s and stuff, that era, and they were actually a little more voluptuous, a little bit more of an athletic body. I think that was the best era in terms of like body standards. And then it got very skinny, the heroin chic with like Kate Moss and everything. And now with the advent of the Kardashians, we are seeing the advent of, you know, you have the perfect skinny waist and then like the big butt and then the big boobs. And I totally agree. That is actually harder to get because at least the skinny you can naturally get there, sometimes very unhealthy means, not in any way promoting that. But that is impossible unless you get surgery. Like these people are getting BBLs, liposuction, and boob jobs, which is costing them $50,000 plus probably, and then these girls are looking at it and thinking that these women naturally have these bodies, so it's a complete lie.
Well, I think that's why you see so many comments now on TikTok where it's like, I'm not ugly, I'm just poor.
Yeah.
Because the beauty standard is just so far gone where they're actually just romanticizing and propping up just fakeness. Like everything in today's culture is fake and gay.
And it's a little fake, a little guy. Yeah, and it's just ugly. I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's a reason why a lot of people look back at images from like the models that I just mentioned and, you know, celebrities back in the early 2000s. And there was a real youthful, natural look going on with a lot of these actresses in our favorite like rom-coms and, you know, our favorite TV shows, even like the Vampire Diaries, which wasn't that long ago. And nowadays it's like everyone has the Instagram face.
With the same Whoville nose.
Yeah,
Whom.
exactly. And then the fake butt. It's gross. I'm over it. I'm like, bring back all natural. I think that's why people actually really love. I know Sydney Sweeney actually is very naturally blessed with like, you know, being bigger busted and stuff, but she has a very natural looking physique and a natural looking face. And you can tell actually her boobs are natural versus like having, you know, the perfect boobs like this that you can tell have been done. You know what I mean? And so I think people like that. It's more achievable.
Exactly. That's what I was just about to say. The reason why women like Sydney Sweeney and like Livy Dunn, who's that LSU gymnast, the reason why they're so sought after and why so many people find them so attractive is because it's that true all-American beauty where it's like they're embracing their like own natural physical features, maybe just accentuating them a bit. Obviously, like, women want to wear makeup and look their best self, but it's the girl next door. It is your neighbor or your nanny. So I love that, where it's just, now we're getting back to like that all-American beauty instead of like trying to like achieve this algorithmically curated body that doesn't even look good in real life, if I'm being completely honest.
No, it's tacky and it's ugly, and we're ending it there. We're going to get into our next segment, I Have No Words. And that has to go to today to the Canterbury Cathedral, which is an old English church that's nearly 1,800 years old. And it was used as an art exhibit, we'll show you guys the images, by LGBTQ activists to promote inclusivity and representation. And the artist Alex Poet apparently self-identifies as a they-them queer vegan. And for our listening audience, basically they put graffiti all over this beautiful historic church. And like everything the left does, it looks freaking ugly.
Yep, they're defacing this church. This is the type of shit that would throw a Victorian-era child into a coma. Like, there's no word. Like, when I say I put this in this segment for a reason, there truly is no words to describe. Like, I can't even fully articulate how I feel about this subject.
You're right, though. If you took, like, a person from 100 years ago, maybe even 50 years ago, and you'd be like, this is art, they'd be like, what? Modern art is so ugly, and it's disgusting that they're defacing the church. And I will say this, as a Catholic, this is why a lot of people are leaving, especially mainline Protestantism, which is really sad because mainline Protestantism built America and, you know, is obviously a big part of like Anglo-Saxon culture. And these Anglican, Episcopalian, Methodist, Lutheran, I'm calling all your churches out, they're all led by women now. They're all totally woke. And they all don't adhere to any biblical truths whatsoever. And they're trying to, you know, have inclusivity and representation for people who hate you. Stop trying to cater yourselves to people who hate everything you stand for. I'm so sick of it.
Yeah, you have this sacred church that is now just a canvas for woke vandalism. And it doesn't even look good. And I could go into the architectural design of the church and why this cathedral is so beautiful. This is just civilization rotcore, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you could find this art in Chicago or Portland. It's not hard to come by some ugly graffiti. It's in every major city that, unfortunately, I wish I could go and scrub off myself. But churches, let's preserve beauty and tradition and art. What I love about the Catholic Church and why I'm proud to be a Catholic as well is we've created the greatest architecture and works in human history. Truly, the Catholic Church has.
I completely agree with that. That's why the ceilings are high, makes you feel more connected to the Lord spiritually. You have the stained glass windows with the vibrant colors, telling stories of the Bible and times in history. It makes you feel more connected to that time and to Jesus. And I completely agree. That's where actually a lot of, and I don't want to speak to anybody, but personally, somebody who goes to Christian non-denominational churches, it's nice walking into a Catholic church. You do feel more connected to God than when you're in an auditorium. It's kind of, I do have that disconnect sometimes.
Well, I obviously love non-denominational churches too. They're amazing. I think they're actually the best way to catapult people into the faith as well, which is, I'm really proud of. In my family, we go to both churches, and I think that's spectacular for my daughter to grow up with, you know, both versions of that. But I think there is something to be said about people are wanting tradition right now, and truly the only normal churches in the West now are Catholic churches and non-denominational, which is why faithful Christians are going in mass movements away from these mainline Protestant churches. And if these churches want to get people back into the pews, then start embracing real beauty, biblical truths, and real, you know, salvation in Jesus Christ. Okay, you guys, now we're going to move to the non-toxic advice. It's our time to bring you guys in. And can I say, you guys submitted the best questions. Like, our inbox, you know, I expected, I feel like the girls that have started following us and have followed the conservatory, you guys are always amazing. I'm blown away by just how intelligent these women are. But I was not expecting to have such a difficult time in our second episode going through all these questions. You guys are fantastic. And if you haven't submitted a question yet, go to sincerelyamerican.com/ask a question, and you can find the link on our Instagram. But let's get into it. So Sydney from New York asked, do you have any advice for young women who want to get involved in politics? I am in my early 20s and I've been working at an accounting firm for several years. Overall, I'm looking for a shift in my career, but I have no idea where to start.
I love this question. She actually messaged me this personally, and I actually do get this question a lot. I just think there is ample opportunity to find your footing in this space, because politics isn't just something where you have a clear-cut path to only doing one thing. There's just so many different areas that you can, and different interests that you could pursue. I would just say, as Charlie Kirk famously said, which really resonated with me as like an 18, 19-year-old entering this space, is self-analyze what you're good at and what you enjoy doing, and the passion will follow, the money will follow, whatever you want will follow in return. And so I do think that's good. Just figure out what you're best at and what you enjoy doing too, and that passion will follow ultimately. And honestly, that's how we got started, and this podcast came to fruition. We love talking to each other about these issues on the phone, and we just get to do that in front of you guys now and share that with you. And so, but there was a time before that entering, and I did grassroots. I worked on multiple campaigns as an intern, and I was door knocking. I was doing like the least glamorous things you can do in this space, but I was meeting the right people, and I got to decide for myself, do I want to work on a local level, state level? Do I want to pursue something on the federal level? So it's good to hop around and see what you're good at, what you're interested in, and then again, the success will follow thereafter.
Yeah, I love that, Camryn. Both Camryn and I came from no political connections whatsoever. I grew up in Northern California. I went to UC Berkeley, which is not especially a conservative beacon of hope over there. So I didn't know very many people in the Republican movement when I was in college. And my parents are actually Canadian, so no real like American ties. But I decided I wanted to work in politics when I was inspired by, my conservative beliefs at Cal. And I just started, I visited my co-founder, Isabel, who was interning in Senate at the time, and I went and visited her on Capitol Hill, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool to work here. I want to intern here next summer. So I went ahead, I emailed about 100 offices, like truly, just across the Hill on the Senate side and on the House of Representatives side. And for those of you who don't know, a lot of times they're looking for people with ties to their state. Coming from Northern California, there's not a ton of Republicans in Congress. So I got back 99 no's. No one even responded. I filled out like 50 million applications, took hours of my life. But I got one yes, and it was to work on a Senate committee, which was amazing. I flew out there that summer and just started meeting and greeting and taking advantage, soaking up every opportunity. That's a real cool thing about working in politics, that there's so many events, there's so many things for you to do, little meet and greets and meet people. And the number one thing I'll say is when you do get that little foot in the door, just run, force the door open, be a very kind person to people, and people will want to see you get ahead, and also, help other people in return too. And that's immediately how my career took off, because I started just meeting new people. And then that next summer I went and worked on the Trump campaign. Then I met Camryn and went and worked in the White House. And then, got my job over at Fox News, and here I am today. And my second point I will make is don't rely on necessarily like these legacy establishment type jobs, like working in a Senate office, as amazing and cool as that is. You can be a self-starter, and that's why I started the Conservateur, so you can build your own resume. You don't have to wait to get these like incredible jobs in order to start building a resume, because people want to see people who are passionate about different ideas and that are willing to put themselves out there. I think is just a trait that a lot of employers look for. And so don't be afraid to like go and do your own thing and build your resume on your own, because for me, I feel like that has allowed me to achieve a lot of things in a short period of time.
Starting the Conservateur for you, it really just showed that you were in it for the right reasons, that you were truly passionate about that subject, and it was genuine passion for it, because a lot of people will get in and maybe it's for the wrong reasons. Maybe it's whether they're pursuing money or attention or whatever the case may be. Actually having something that you created yourself from the ground up that took like time, effort, and real thought will really separate you from the other players in this space.
Okay, moving on. Sarah from Georgia. When do you think it's the best time to have kids? Everyone these days say to wait and enjoy your 20s. What are y'all thoughts? Y'all, I love that.
I do too. I don't want to speak on this again with too much authority. I don't have children yet. But honestly, I don't think that there's ever going to be a right time. It's truly going to be on God's timing. And I think in today's day and age, people think, oh, I have to have like a certain net worth, or I have to be bringing in, X amount per year, and I have to have this type of home. And honestly, and I think Jayme can speak on this a little bit more, I think when you're so calculated and trying to plan this out, it actually overshadows the beauty and the blessing that is having children, because that is truly such a gift that God put into your life. And when you're trying to plan all of this stuff out, obviously do not overlook biology and biological factors for women and having children, making sure that you have healthy and viable eggs when you're younger. I'm not saying that. But also just, I personally think just being so calculated in that decision making can really take away from the magic of it.
I completely agree. Everybody's so calculated in this day and age. I need to have it at this time, this time, this time. It's like, get married and have more kids than you can even pay for. I love Tucker Carlson one time said that, and I'm like, no one gives that advice nowadays, but it's true. I will say this, though, as much as I'm like, get married young and have kids, I will say it's important to have kids with the right person, which means marrying the right person. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people, I think a lot of younger conservative Christian women, want to get married in their early 20s, of course. But if you haven't met the right person, wait a second, and the right person is worth waiting a little bit longer for, because at the end of the day, that is most important. And I hate when people put just such like a strong thing on people's ages and stuff, because I truly think, age isn't just a number when it comes to stuff, so you shouldn't have pressure around it. But, it is important to be aware. A lot of people will get married, in their mid-20s and are like, oh, I'm going to wait till my 30s to have kids. And that does come with biological risk. It's much harder to have kids in your 30s. So if you are in the position where you're married and you're with the love of your life, then go ahead and get started and start having kids. That would be my greatest piece of advice. It's an amazing journey. Being a mom, and my husband Drake will say the same exact thing, becoming parents is truly the greatest blessing in life. And people used to have kids in caves. You'll figure it out. I promise. It's especially when they're babies and stuff. You don't a lot of people think they need to buy a house. I don't. Drake and I don't live in a house. We live in a condo. We love our condo. It's very cute. But you don't need to have this massive house. You don't need to have this perfect picket fence life already. Just go at it, and you'll figure it out from there. And you'll be financially incentivized to just work your absolute hardest, because you want to give that child the entire world. Okay, our next question and our last one today is going to be from Margot from Illinois. How do you feel about plastic surgery and Botox? My husband is very anti that, but I do eventually want to get Botox, potentially lip filler, and maybe even a boob job. Is that wrong of me?
I don't think it's wrong of you, and I think a lot of conservative women would probably disagree with me on that, but I would honestly just say for things like this, make sure that your decision is rooted in logic and not emotions, because the feelings that you have about your body, those could be fleeting and they could be temporary. Make sure there's a logical reason, and you've sought out this decision, and you've actually come to it with intention, and you've had a lot of clarity. Don't just base it off of I feel a certain way, or I feel like I look like this, because then a couple years down the line you may not stand by that decision anymore.
Yeah, it's funny because people all the time be like, too much filler to me. And I'm like, I've actually never gotten anything done. Not because I'm anti-plastic surgery. I'm just so lazy. And I get nervous to put anything in your face, because I think a lot of times it can change your face. I think especially when you're young, I don't think there's any rush in your 20s. I think your face is still developing a lot. Brianna, our amazing editor, I want her to insert this buccal fat removal that you're seeing girls. And Camryn and I were like this. In our 20s, we had puffy, beautiful, young, youthful faces. But at the time, I remember being like, oh, I would love to get this fat removed from my face. But as you get older, that fat naturally goes away. And so like you were saying, do not rush to get any of these procedures, because especially in your early 20s, you're still growing into your face. And, this might sound cheesy and cliche, but I genuinely believe this. I think there's so much beauty and imperfection, and I almost think in this day and age where everybody's getting plastic surgery, everybody's getting work done, you almost look more unique if you don't. And there is something alien and kind of off-putting about somebody that has their whole face done. You can kind of always tell, versus someone who just naturally owns who they are. And I think that's a real beautiful thing. And, I remember Camryn was telling me, she's like, what did you say you wanted to get your nose done?
Oh, yeah, I wanted to get my nose done because when I was a cheerleader, my flyer fell on my face, and I really never got it checked out, and I'm pretty sure it's crooked now, whatever. But Jayme talked me out of it, because it was rooted in this emotion where I was reading these hate comments, And instead, it wasn't like I was doing it for myself and it was a logical reason. It was because I was trying to appease people who like literally sit in their parents' basement and just comment hate comments on myself. Like, it was just not even rooted in logic. It was pure emotion. It is so important that you're doing it for the right reasons, because women nowadays are so susceptible to like being emotionally manipulated when you walk into like a med spa or a plastic surgeon's office and you're sitting there and a girl or a woman may be like, you know, what do you think that I should get done? And they may point out a ton of things that you wouldn't even have normally noticed about yourself. And then you're just going down this hole of spending more and more and more money when it's not even maybe even noticeable to other people.
And it's addicting. And the next thing you know, you look like a Barbie doll, and not in a good way. Like, you look like totally fake. You're so right. It's a slippery slope, because then they're going to start pointing to everything on your face that's wrong and how you can do this, do this, do this. And I will tell you, your husband probably doesn't want you to get plastic surgery. I feel like my husband said the same exact thing, because he fell in love for you for what you look like now, and he thinks you're beautiful. So there's no reason to change that. I will say, though, I think a very normal thing that, you know, a lot of women, once they get into their 30s and stuff, getting Botox, you know, to keep like a youthful thing. I would say I probably will get that in my 30s as well. So I would never say against that. And if there's something that you really hate, like if you really want to get a nose job, for example, I can understand people who make that decision. But in general, I'm not saying this in a cheesy way. You guys are beautiful, and like, just own your beauty and your uniqueness.
Men probably discourage that as well, not only for financial reasons, because like Jayme said, they fall in love with you because they already think they're beautiful. They probably want your children to look like you too because of that. Like, when you have like all of this work done, these men probably don't even know what you actually look like.
That's a good point. There's also a trend on TikTok where people are like, my kids will look nothing like me because everything's fake. And that's crazy,
that's
actually.
Scary.
That is crazy. There's another trend on TikTok I quickly want to bring up where it's like, in 2012, I was praying for my mom going into surgery.
Yeah.
And then he found out, like, this day and age, it was a boob job. I thought that was really funny.
It's just such a slippery slope, but Jayme and I often live by the European mindset of like everything in moderation. So I don't want to say that you can't fix certain things that you may notice more than others, but just be careful, because it is a slippery slope.
We'll end that there, and we'll go on to our next section, hot or not. Okay, for our first hot or not, tabby flat shoes, which I actually didn't know this was the name of it, so we'll insert a picture. But then when I saw the picture, I'm like, oh, I know what that is.
Not. I feel like it looks like a camel toe.
I completely, that was my actual exact same thought. I'm like, these are hideous. Who is wearing these? I love a ballet flat, as you can see here, but not with that weird toe thing. That's just too trendy. Next one, short kings.
Hot. And I know Jayme and I will probably have a different take, but what we're seeing in today's dating culture is where women will pursue these men just for superficial reasons, and they're not looking at the substantive of it, and the relationship is not going to stand the test of time if you're basing it off of height. I do think, obviously, there is a biological reason why women want to pursue men who are taller, because it signals that they could probably protect them. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side of that, I would honestly be looking at things that are more substantive of like, is he providing for me? Is he being a gentleman? Is he opening the door for me? If you're just going to write him off because of his height, truthfully, I completely disagree with that, and none of your relationships are going to last, in my opinion.
I'm actually going to go with hot too. Okay, it's funny because like my husband's tall, but I never cared that much about people's height. Like, I care more about the substance of your personality, everything you just mentioned. And I like a guy that's confident and can own that. I don't discriminate based on height. Okay, next one, astrology.
This gives me such the ick. Jayme knows this about me. I just don't like how people idolatrize like the moon and the stars and basically make it their idol and basically base their entire personality off of a chart that tries to put you in a box. Like, just because your Cancer moon is rising doesn't give you like an excuse to be a bitch that day, in my opinion.
I completely agree. It's a fake religion, for one. I think as a Christian, you shouldn't be, engaged in astrology. And also, it's so fake. Like, example, I am a Capricorn, and they're like, Capricorns are quiet, they're good with money, and they're strategic. That is none of me. And then, and I will just say too, like every single one you can like find yourself in. It's like, I don't, it's just so fake in my opinion. I hate it. It's like the annoying like liberal girl always is talking about that with that like weird cloth that she hangs above her bed. You know, that like tribal cloth that's like,
Oh, yeah.
and like a dream catcher. So it's just not my vibe. Laminated brows.
I'm gonna go hot with this one. Jayme kind of put me on to laminated brows recently just because I had summer brows. Like people say summer teeth, like some hairs were here and some are there. Like they were like kind of all over my face and they really just tame them. It just elevates your look a little bit more. And yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with hot as well. I don't like when they're like too feathered and they stand up too much. Like I do like more of a defined and like trimmed down brow for sure, but I love a big fluffy brow, and I'm happy that we grew up in the era of like Anastasia brows, and Cara Delevingne was so big when we were teenagers because none of us overplucked our brows, and so I'm thankful for that. So definitely hot. Last one, this one's a little controversial. Age gaps in relationships.
Oh, this one is controversial. I'm gonna go with hot just because I think you should choose compatibility over age. Like my husband's older than me, and I've just found in conversations and we have very similar worldviews. I don't know, it's just very hard for me. I've always had a hard time resonating with men my age. You also have to remember, like, I was graduating high school at like 16 years old. And like by the time I had graduated college, like these guys were still doing like frat parties and had Snapchat. And like we're just like living a completely different life. And I was obviously like in a full sprint in my career. And I just honestly had more things to talk about with my husband and with like older men because I was just like in a completely different stage of life. So choose compatibility and somebody who has a similar worldview, because a lot of those worldviews can't even be obtained without, you know, maturity and lived through certain experiences as well.
I'm going to go with not. I think it's undervalued in this day and age, having a partner that's the same age as you. Like, obviously, it's easier for a woman sometimes to marry an older guy who's, like, already established his career and is, you know, further along in that. But I think there's something really beautiful. My parents did it, and I'm doing that with my husband, Drake, to meet each other really young before you have anything going in your career and grow that together and grow a life together. And I don't think that's talked about now enough. So I love being the same age as Drake, and I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to throw in a funny little segment today that's out of our usual show rundown. And there's been this trend, the lion does not concern himself with, or for us, the lioness doesn't. And last night I saw that President Trump posted it on his TikTok. He was like, the lion does not concern himself with fake news. And it showed like Trump walking. And that was on the official White House TikTok. And I thought that was hilarious. And I'm like, okay, we need to add that in today.
Lioness does not concern herself with what the back of her head looks like when she does her hair. I will never be the person who turns around, looks in the mirror to make sure it looks good. If it looks good from the front, I don't see it, and therefore it doesn't exist to me.
The back of my head is not my business. I even do that with self-tanning. Sometimes I just do the front and I forget, like, I have a whole other side that other people see because all I see is the front. So I'm on the same. Mine is the lioness does not concern herself with Northern Virginia urgent care that's called me 53 times this year to tell me I have a $21.71 payment due from 4 years ago. I'm so lazy. I'm not logging on and paying that. So I'm not concerning myself with that today.
Oh my gosh. I love that.
Okay, going into our final segment, propaganda that we are not falling for.
So propaganda that I'm not falling for, I've seen this all over social media where women are like, start romanticizing your life. And it's this huge TikTok trend right now. And I honestly, hot take, I think that is detrimental for society. I do think like it's masquerading as positivity, but it's honestly positivity in denial, where you're actually settling for mediocrity. You're not, you know, recognizing hard truths of your life in order to like get past certain things. And if you're romanticizing, honestly, like staying at home and not having a purpose and the same day-to-day routine where you're staying stagnant, I honestly think that's so detrimental to your mental health at the end of the day.
Yeah, and your life. I could agree with that.
Yeah.
It's good to be positive, but when you are not but I think sometimes it's good to also have self-reflection and be honest about things, because that makes you have a better life instead of just settling, oh, it's fine, and just coasting. Like, you shouldn't be coasting through life. You should always be critical and, advancing. Mine is people giving marriage and parental advice that are not married or don't have kids. I find this crazy. I see this all the time all over social media. Like, you'll have someone talking in depth about things they would do with their kids or things that they would do in their marriage. And I relate it to this. It would be like if I called someone and it's like, hey, can you give me a guide on hiking Yosemite? Meanwhile, they've never hiked a single trail. Like, you don't know anything till you've been through that.
Taking advice from Democrats when they've like literally ruined the government.
Yeah, literally. That as well.
In our country.
Yeah.
Like, why would I take political advice from you?
Why would I take political advice from someone who doesn't know what a man or a woman is? I'm not going to take advice. But anyway, going back to that, I think, there are so many things once you've been through marriage and once you've had kids that you would never foresee. Your life changes in every single way. And the people that I take advice from, like on podcasts or, just mentors I look up to, have been people who have been married for years and have a bunch of kids, because I think that they have the best worldview of that. And I just can't stand people getting on their soapbox and talking about these issues. Like, I'm not taking advice from you when you've done none of this, but thank you.
Yeah, I just don't think you should speak on things that you've never experienced or you don't know. That to me makes you actually sound more stupid, in my opinion, than just not talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Camryn, what propaganda are you falling for?
I am falling for infrared saunas, and I just always feel better getting out of an infrared sauna. There's so many health benefits to it. It helps increase blood circulation, collagen reproduction. It helps with endorphins. And so honestly, like, I'll do that after a workout. I'll feel so much better. I'll take a shower after. And there's just, honestly, you should Google all of the health benefits. I honestly didn't even go through like a third of the health benefits for that. But I've honestly seen a drastic improvement in my mood and my complexion of my skin. And it also actually helps lower your cortisol levels too. If you're somebody who gets anxious really easily or like has a high stress job or is just stressed out, it does lower those cortisol levels too, the main stress hormone. So I would highly recommend it. That is definitely propaganda I'm falling for.
I'm going to have to agree with you. I love a sauna. It actually, there's this brand that says that you get naturally high from it, and it's true. It feels like you just finished a workout.
Well, because you're releasing all of these toxins and heavy metals from your body. And so you just feel so much better after.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, the propaganda that I am falling for, you laughed when you said this because this doesn't sound like me, but Christian girl fall.
Okay, I'm laughing because this is not Jayme coded at all. Like, I feel like Jayme 4 years ago would have cringed at the thought of the Christian girl fall.
Okay, so growing up in Northern California, we do not have a fall. Like, the colors the trees do not change colors. Actually, a lot of times it's called an Indian summer. That's what they call it, where it's actually super hot in October. And so moving to the East Coast, something that I just love and have totally embraced is the fall season here. I love the pumpkins. I love cooking soup. I love watching football on the weekends. I'm like a pumpkin spice latte person. And so I just love like getting into the fall season. And I think Christian girl fall is like the funniest thing. I will not be doing infinity scarves or suede skirts, though. I will say that, with the high boots. Not doing any of those photos. But other than that, just love a Christian girl fall.
I'll never forget when I got the text from Jayme like this past summer, and she was like, I'm really embracing being an East Coast girl.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wait, what? Because Jayme's entire like identity is rooted in being from like California, and like you love to be outdoors. Like every single time I'm calling her when she's back home, she's on a hike and like out in the mountains and stuff. So hearing her say that, I was like, this is not Jayme Franklin.
I have become a little bit of an East Coaster, I will not lie. I mean, the West is so beautiful of all the mountains and everything, but there is just something like so idyllic when you drive through Virginia and the rolling green hills and then the leaves change and the little chapels. I will not lie. I'm becoming a little bit of an East Coaster, and I love that energy for me, but I love all of America. I'm like, there's this trend right now on TikTok where like have you seen this, where people will put states that they would or would not live in? And I actually mean this. Every state, I think you can find something amazing in it. Like, I'm not just saying that. Like, I hate when people SHIT on a certain state, because everywhere you go, like even a state that you wouldn't think has a lot going for it, there's going to be a beautiful and fun neighborhood and great people.
Yeah, I don't know why people put so much emphasis on like international travel when I'm like, have you traveled the United States? Everything you could possibly need is right here. I miss the days where like we could point to like a certain region on a map in like the Middle East and I didn't even know what that country was because we weren't involved. Like, why aren't we traveling to like states in America and embracing that? Like, Jayme and I are going on like this coal mining trip in Pennsylvania soon. Where we've been offered to go outside of the country and we're like, no, we're going to stay right here in the United States of America because it's the best country on earth.
If you are, a regular influencer who's usually liberal, you're going to get a tart Bora Bora trip. But if you're like us, we're going to get a coal mining trip to Pennsylvania, and we cannot wait. We'll see you there. And on that note, we'll wrap up things this week. Thank you guys for supporting us. Make sure that you're subscribed to us on YouTube. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and make sure you're following @SincerelyAmerican on Instagram and on TikTok.
Bye. We'll see you every Wednesday.